Today we are going to practice multiplying fractions. Here we go. Let's rethink what multiplication means. You might say it means times. I want you to think of it as meaning of or copies of. Now I'm sure you were taught that multiplying just means a repeated addition or making copies of something. So you might already know that in the back of your mind, but it's really helpful to bring that out and use the words copies of when you're doing these mental math fraction multiplications. It might really help simplify things. Another little note is that we do not need common denominators. Common denominators are not necessary when we are multiplying or dividing fractions. They are strictly for addition and subtraction of fractions. The GCF, or greatest common factor, is still going to be handy. It's going to help us reduce our fractions. Okay, so these are all things that we're going to be talking about as we multiply our fractions. Let's look at these three examples together. 2 times 1/3. 2 copies of 1/3. When we use the phrase copies of, it really helps us understand what we're trying to do here. If I need 2 copies of 1/3, that means I need 1/3 plus 1/3, which equals 2/3. 3 copies of 1 1/4. It's really important that we get 3 copies of this whole thing. If you just copy the 1 3 times and not the quarter, then you're not finishing the job. The 3 has to copy the 1 and the 3 has to copy the 1/4. We want 3 copies of this whole thing. So it's like saying 1 1/4 plus 1 1/4 plus 1 1/4. That's what we're thinking in our head. So 3 copies of the 1 will give us 3. 3 copies of the 1/4 gives us 3/4. Done. So far, no need to reduce anything. Here, I need 1/2 of 1/5. So that might be easy for some people in their mind to imagine what a half of 1/5 is. It's 1/10. Another way to do this, if that just didn't come naturally to you, the quick way to multiply when you have 2 proper fractions is just numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. 1 times 1 equals 1, 2 times 5 equals 10. So the mental math way really is to be thinking in your head, what does this mean? It means 1/2 of 1/5, which is 1/10, because it takes 2/10 to make a fifth. Therefore, 1/10 is half of 1/5. Okay, here, I want 1/3 of 3. So imagine you had 3 and you're taking 1/3 of it. When you're taking 1/3 of something, you are splitting it into 3 equal parts. I'm taking one of those parts. So 1/3 of 3 would be 1. I can illustrate that here by saying I have 3 pizzas. I want 1/3 of my pizzas. So I'd have to divide all of my pizzas to 3 equal groups, and I would just take 1. There's 1 in each group. So 1/3 of 3 is 1. Another way to look at that would be, I know that multiplication is a type of operation where I can change the order. I can really rewrite this or think of it in my head as 3 times 1/3. 3 copies of 1/3. So another way of thinking of this question is 3 copies of 1/3. 1/3 and 1/3 and 1/3 is 3/3. 3/3 is equal to 1. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways to look at each question, but either way, they'll all get you to the same answer. Okay, now it's your turn. Okay, pause the video, try these questions on your own, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, so for this first one, I need 2 copies of 1 1/2. So I need to copy this whole mixed number. So I'll need 2 copies of the 1, which is 2, and I'll need 2 copies of the half. 1/2 and 1/2 is 1 whole, so it's 2 and 2 halves, which should actually be written as 3, because it's 2 and 1 that equals 3. 3 is my whole answer. Here, I need 2/5 of 1/2. That's a little tricky to think of it just as it said, 2/5 of 1/2. That's not really something that I can imagine in my head. So I can reverse this because I know that multiplication, it's okay to flip it. So I can think 1/2 of 2/5. So if I have 2/5 and I need a half of it, half of 2 is 1, so this would be 1/5. If that wasn't easy for you, you can remember just the straight up algorithm for multiplying fractions is numerator times numerator. So 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. And this gives us the unreduced answer. So we would have to take this and then reduce it to 1/5. So 1/5 should be your final answer either way. Okay, here I need 1/6 of 5, or because that's not really something that I can imagine in my head, I know I can switch the question. I can switch the order of it. I can go 5 copies of 1/6. So 5 times 1/6, that means 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6. 5 copies. 5/6. Okay, here I need half of 4. Now that's something I can imagine in my head. I can imagine that half of 4 would simply be 4 divided by 2, which is 2. If you prefer looking at it from the other side, 4 copies of 1/2, you would have 4 halves. 4 halves would look like this, which is an improper fraction, which you would just translate to equal 2 in the end. So no matter which way you look at it, 2 would be your answer for that.